Imagine you're lying in bed. It's 11:47 p.m. You told yourself you'd be asleep by 10. The remote is in your hand. Netflix is open, and you're scrolling. Not watching, scrolling. Row after row after row of thumbnails, sliding past your eyes like a slot machine that never pays out. 45 minutes go by, you have not pressed play once. And eventually exhausted, defeated by a menu, you just turn it off and go to sleep. Having watched nothing, here's the thing nobody tells you: that wasn't a failure of willpower. That wasn't you being bad at making decisions. What just happened to you has a name. It's been measured in a lab, and honestly, the data for this is genuinely insane. So let's talk about why your brain would rather shut down completely than pick a movie. In the year 2000, two researchers set up a table in an upscale grocery store in California. Free jam samples. On some days, 6 flavors. On other days, 24. Now, if you'd asked anyone walking by, they'd have told you obviously more jam is better. More options, more freedom, more happiness. That's just common sense, right? Wrong. Here's what actually happened. The 24 jam table pulled way more foot traffic, like 60% of shoppers stopped to look. Only 40% stopped at the 6 jam table. So far, more choice. More interest. Checks out. But watch this. Of the people who stopped at the giant 24 jam display, only about 3% actually bought anything. 3% at the small table. Almost 30% bought jam, 10 times more. Think about that for a second. The huge selection didn't just fail to help people decide. It actively converted curiosity into walking away empty-handed. More options didn't create more buyers. It created more people standing there, frozen, and then leaving. That's not a jam problem. That's a you at 11:47 p.m. problem. Netflix isn't a streaming service. It's a jam table with 15,000 flavors. And your brain is running the exact same math at industrial scale. And here's where it gets weirder, because your brain doesn't experience that scroll as "I'm failing to choose." Economists who study this found something wild. When the choice set gets big enough, people stop picking a worse option. They start picking nothing at all, and they treat that nothing as if it were a real choice on the menu. Doing nothing becomes the default winner. So when you close the app and go to sleep, your brain isn't malfunctioning. It's voting. It looked at 15,000 options, calculated that evaluating all of them was too expensive, and it picked unconsciousness as the 15,001st option, which honestly is a pretty dark contestant to be on that ballot, but here we are. Now, here's the part that's going to mess with you a little. There's a personality trait psychologists actually measure with a real scale, a real questionnaire, and they call it maximizing. Maximizers don't want a good option. They want the best option, every single time. And the research is genuinely brutal about what that trait does to a person. People who score high on this maximizing scale report lower happiness, lower optimism, lower self-esteem, and significantly more depression and regret than people who don't, not slightly more. Consistently, measurably more. Meanwhile, there's the other group. Satisficers, people who go, this is good enough, and just move on with their lives. And they're doing fine. They're not less successful. They're not settling for garbage. They're just not demanding that every decision be the objectively optimal one out of 15,000. Here's the thing. Nobody tells you about that Netflix homepage. It's not neutral. It is a machine specifically built to trigger maximizing behavior in everybody, even people who are satisficers in the rest of their life. Top picks for you, because you watched. New releases. It's whispering. Somewhere out there in one of these rows is the perfect show for tonight, and if you stop scrolling now, you might miss it. That's not an accident. That's the algorithm quietly installing your worst psychological trait on purpose every single night. And it gets even more specific than that. Because it's not really about total number of shows. Researchers found the actual trigger for overload is something called the category ratio. How many options are crammed under one label? Netflix could have 5,000 titles under 20 clean categories and your brain would be fine. Instead, it's got thousands of titles jammed under vague mood-based labels like emotional watches, or because you watched that thing once. Your brain isn't overwhelmed by the size of the library. It's overwhelmed by the fact that the sorting itself makes no sense. It's not a library. It's a library where the books got reshelved by vibes. Okay, but here's a curveball, because I promised you this would be rigorous, and rigorous means telling you when the popular version of a study is actually wrong. You've probably heard of the hungry judge study. Israeli parole judges granting parole about 65% of the time right after their meal breaks, and that number sliding down towards zero the longer they went without eating. It got turned into this whole narrative. Your brain runs on sugar. When the sugar's gone, your self-control collapses. Eat a snack before big decisions. Except, here's the twist. Nobody puts in the thumbnail. A massive replication, 23 separate labs, all pre-registered so nobody could cherry-pick the results afterward, tried to recreate the underlying effect this theory was built on, and it came back basically at zero. The glucose story, the one that's been repeated in 1,000 productivity articles, is way shakier than everyone assumes, which is honestly the funniest possible outcome for a video about decision-making, because it means the popular explanation for decision fatigue might itself be a case of nobody scrutinizing their choices carefully enough. We fell for the easy answer about why we fall for the easy answer. Your brain? Doing it again. So if it's not sugar, what is actually happening when you're stuck on that couch? Two things, and they're both kind of beautiful in a tragic way. First, regret from almost picking the right thing hurts worse than regret from just being handed something bad. This is why Olympic bronze medalists statistically report being happier than silver medalists. Bronze medalists are just thrilled to be on the podium. Silver medalists spend their whole life going, "I was so close to gold." That near miss feeling is uniquely painful. And it's exactly what you're doing 40 times a night, scrolling past shows that are almost good enough, and each near miss stings a little more than the last. Second, and this one's the real engine under the hood. It's not that you can't decide, it's that some part of you would rather feel nothing at all than feel the specific pain of picking wrong. There's research on this too, with something as simple as a photography class. Students got to keep one photo. Half were told the choice was final, half were told they had 6 days to change their mind if they wanted to swap. You'd think having the option to change your mind would make people happier. It's the opposite. The group that could still swap ended up liking their photo less and stayed less happy with it, even after the swap window closed and they were stuck with it anyway. Because here's what happens when a decision is locked in. Your brain quietly starts building the case for why it was a good choice. It highlights what's great about the picture you kept and lets the appeal of the one you gave up fade. That process needs the door to actually close. If you leave it cracked open, "I'll just keep it in my queue. I'll decide later," that psychological settling in never gets to happen. You never get to like anything because nothing ever actually finished, which is Netflix's entire business model, by the way. Nothing on that platform is ever locked in, everything's reversible. You can always keep scrolling instead. So the mechanism that would normally let you feel good about your choice literally never gets triggered because the app is engineered to never let a choice become final. So let's zoom out, because none of this is really about jam, or judges, or a streaming app. Your brain evolved to make decisions in an environment with maybe 5 real options: which trail, which berry patch, which cave. It was never built to calculate the opportunity cost of 15,000 simultaneous alternatives, and it's not going to magically learn how, no matter how many productivity hacks you download when you freeze on that couch. That's not a personal defect. That's an ancient, perfectly functional piece of software trying to run a job it was never designed for, on hardware built for a world that no longer exists. And maybe that's actually kind of freeing, because it means the exhaustion, the paralysis, the nights you watch nothing at all. None of that was a character flaw. It was never really about your willpower or your ability to commit or whether you're indecisive as a person. It was math. Ancient, honest, completely predictable math running exactly the way it was built to run. So next time you're standing at the jam table, the 15,000 flavor one, you don't need the best jam. You just need a jam. Pick one, let the door close, and let yourself finally actually taste something.